Good morning, everybody. How are you doing today?
Good.
Awesome, great to hear. So, last week you handed your papers in, and I saw you had some problems with the tense that you're writing in, so we're going to be talking about that today. But first, I want you to tell me what kind of sentence Sam was defeated by the girl. What kind of sentence is that? Melanie?
Passive.
Absolutely. And could someone tell me what kind of sentence the dog went to the store is? Hannah?
Active.
Absolutely correct again. So if you had struggles with this, identifying these sentences, today you're going to learn how to identify the sentence in the passive voice and also write in passive voice. Here is our agenda and objectives, which I started to mention already. What is passive voice? Look at examples and describe passive and active voice. Practice writing in passive voice in groups and as an individual. And then our objectives are identify sentences in the passive voice and write sentences in the passive voice. So, what is passive voice? Passive voice is when the subject is acted upon, where he or she receives the action expressed by the verb. The agent performing the action may appear in by the. That's our little cue if you want to have, quote, a cheat to understand how to identify a sentence in passive voice. Sometimes the phrase may be omitted. So a simple example is the girl was stung by the bee. Passive because, would anyone like to share why it was passive? Bruna.
It's passive because the bee is actually doing action, and then bee is by the phrase by the.
Correct. Awesome. And for further research, you can go to Owl Purdue's website, which gives some great examples, and they give some more detailed, intricate examples of what passive voice is like. All right, so as you can see that there's some simple examples here, like the boy was bitten by the dog, but then you go to this sentence right here, research will be presented by Pooja at the conference. And you would think that this is talking about the future because it says will be, but it is passive voice because Pooja is acting upon research. So that is how that is considered a passive voice sentence. And another sentence, well, that one. The entrance exam was failed by over 1/3 of the applicants to the school board, or to the school. It may be confusing because there's more than one noun, but you can tell this because you find what is acting upon the subject, which is the entrance exam. And how do I change passive voice into active voice? This is essential to know because sometimes you do not always need to know or need to write in the passive voice. So according to Writers Inc., you can take a sentence such as this one. Our biology teacher was loved by us. She was often asked for extra help, which was always given. This is passive, and sometimes it can be a little wordy and hard to understand, but to get across the same message, you can rearrange the sentence and say, we loved our biology teacher. We were always asking for extra help, and she was always willing to give it. This gives a little bit of spice to your writing and also makes it a smoother read for the reader. Passive voice is essential to use. You don't necessarily want to use it in your general everyday writing. It's used for scientific writings because you're not mentioning the names of particular researchers as the subjects of sentences. For most situations, as I said, active voice is what should be used rather than passive. And then it can make writing seem uninteresting. That is when you should avoid passive voice. And now that you understand what passive voice is like and how to do this, let's try this together in your groups and create a sentence in passive voice. So you'll have 2 minutes to do so, you and your groups, and then we'll share what your sentence is. And that would be found, and you can write that on the sheet that says guided practice. Be as creative as you want.
With the tree leaf. Oh, shoot.
Any questions over here? So she's not actually.
I think I
Okay, cool.
So this is
All right, it looks like you have your sentences completed. If I could have your attention up here again, please, that would be wonderful. So if I could have my first group share a sentence that they formulated together as a group. Could I have an individual share here?
The girl was eaten by the monster.
Very nice, very nice. And could I hear an example from your group, please?
Yeah, the cake was eaten by the mice.
Fabulous. And could I get an example from your group, please?
The papers were graded by the teacher.
Awesome. Excellent. Now that you work together in groups, I want you to try this as an individual and write your own sentences. And take your independent practice sheet, and I want you to do that and write your sentence on this sheet. Does anybody need more time? You're all finished? All right, cool. Could I have an individual named Rebecca share her sentence, please?
I said the presentation was taped by Tyler.
Excellent. And can you explain why?
Because Tyler is doing the presenting and it's passive because I'm not seeing if it was Tyler was doing, like if Tyler would have read it, he would say I taped the presentation, but it's passive because it's being said not from a possessive form.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does
It
make
makes
sense.
sense in my head.
Yes. Okay. Could I have Hannah share an example, please?
Sure. Marilyn was taken aback by the critics' comments.
Awesome. Awesome. Great vocabulary usage too. And could I have Anna please share your sentence?
Okay. Hopefully this makes sense. And right now, the water flowed by the house. That is it.
Yep. The water acted upon the house because it flowed by it. All right. Excellent. You got some great practice in with learning how to write in passive voice. Now let's review. What is passive voice? Liz.
When the subject is being acted upon.
Excellent. Yes. And how can you identify what passive voice is? Renell?
When there's the phrase by the in it, they use was.
Yep, those are great ways that you can do that. You can also identify passive voice by seeing that the subject is acted upon by the topic. And you need to also be able to give an example of when passive voice should be used. So when should passive voice be used? What's a great time to do that? Melanie?
Scientific papers,
Yep, and can you state why?
because you wanna leave out anything personal pronouns and that kind of thing, so.
Yep, absolutely. And then give an example of when passive voice should not be used, please. Right.
When you wanna use a lot of action verbs, don't use passive voice.
All right, cool. Yeah, basically any time that you are using to write in general rather than for the scientific method. And I want someone to provide an example of a sentence in passive voice. Could someone do that in addition to what they did before? Yeah, Melanie.
The shrimp was cooked by the chef.
Awesome. Great. I hope you guys understand what passive voice is now and when you should and should not use this, so that way you can better identify what type of sentences you're writing in your papers in the future. Let's move on to our lesson in history now.